Monday, October 8th. I'm Rim.
I'm sick.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, since Scott is indeed sick, we talk about something a little boring. Printers.
Let's do this. So, I'm not, above the weather.
Oh, what was that? What's going on, Scott?
This show's not gonna be easy to do, I don't think.
Now, why is that? I mean, to someone like you who, very, very loudly proclaims that he never gets sick and he never...
I didn't say never, but, sometimes. Less often than other people, like
Poor
you.
Scott didn't go to work today, and he's feeling really sick.
Maybe I should just say less so the show doesn't waste a lot of time in between.
I suggested we just skip a show, but you wanted to do this.
I gotta prove that I'm better than all those other podcasters who just skip shows at the drop of the hat. They come out with like one show a month.
One show a month if we're lucky.
Yeah, so we're better than all you. We're doing shows when we're sick. We don't let shit get in our way. We're better than you. You suck. And if you ever try to say that you're better than us in any way, I'll say I did a show when I'm sick. And if you
well, I think you would have said you did a show when you were sick or was sick,
right?
Not
so you got to do a show, and I don't know what I've got, but there's not.
I know what Scott's got. He has a cold.
But when you got to be in worse condition than me and do a show before you can say anything about me.
Well, anything about you in regards to podcasting.
Yeah. Also,
it's not like this gets you a free pass out of anything.
Also, in completely unrelated news, we used to do these like Harris polls, and it's basically you sign up and they send you links in the email.
Yeah, the only reason I stopped doing that was because I got a bunch of Harris points, and I asked for a knife set, and it was like a $80 knife set, and it never came.
Oh, I did it. And I asked for Simpsons Season 1 on DVD after I got enough points for doing enough surveys. And they gave me Simpsons Season 1 on DVD, and I still have it. So I kept doing it. And then I decided today, they email me like about once a week, and I decided I didn't want to do these polls anymore. I got tired of them. I didn't care anymore.
See, the reason I always did them, one, because I always wanted to win that $10,000 that I knew I wouldn't win.
Every time you do a survey, there's a chance to win $10,000.
But more importantly, I did them just because I noticed... And Scott, I think, would agree that I was often the outlier. Because they always showed you some of the pending results as you were going, and you could always see wow, that's that little lump. That lump is me.
Well, they show you the results at the end because they don't want to influence your choices.
Yeah, but you can always see most people watch 20 hours of TV a week. There's Rim, the only person who said 0.
Yep. But, I also partially did them because I felt like I was having a say. Because someone, they don't make a poll unless some company is doing market research, So if I'm answering, that is going to factor into the numbers that some company is paying for. And they're going to change their decision slightly based on what I answer.
As a result, to try to, I guess, throw my weight, what little weight I had around more, I always gave very extreme answers.
It's sort of like voting, but in companies.
It's like if I didn't like something a little, I'd give it a 0. And if I liked it at all, I'd give it a 10.
Yep. So I used to do these things for a long time, and every time you do one, you get points, and you also get the chance to win $10,000. I never won. Because if I did, I'd pay off my car loan. But, I got these points. And at first I spent the points on Simpsons Season 1 DVD. But then I never spent the points again. So today, I go and I have enough points to buy the biggest prizes they offer. Right? So I'm looking through and I'm like, what the hell should I get with these stupid points? And it's like a fancy watch, luggage, an electric grill.
Luggage is kind of expensive. You probably should have gotten that.
I don't need luggage, though. And it takes up space, which I also don't have.
Get rid of your old luggage.
But I have perfect luggage. And it takes up a lot less space because it's a duffel bag.
Sell it on eBay.
I'm not selling my duffel bag.
Sell the new luggage on eBay.
Fuck that. No.
Why not get some cash instead of whatever you're going to get?
No. So to my amazement, there was also some iPod dock boomboxes things, which I thought about getting. There was a 2.1 stereo system I thought about getting because that's what I've been kind of looking for.
You should have gotten that.
But it was actually a DVD player that came with 2.1 speakers, so I'm not sure how it hooked up, so it might have been useless. But regardless, I ended up getting something I need a lot, which is the Sennheiser wireless RF headphones. So we'll wait to see if they show up.
You realize the problem with the headphones is not the wire here, but it's the splitter and the fact that we're using one headphone hole for two people.
I know, but I still think it'll be vastly superior to my current situation.
And how does it plug in?
With either the big or the small headphone hole.
It has both?
Yeah, it actually said, to my amazement, the little information they provided me about this product was that it had a 1/8 inch stereo mini jack with a 1/4 inch converter. And I'm like, huh, look at that. So I clicked get, because that was the best thing I could have gotten for all that time I spent.
Right, so in the news, I got to talk about this because it's the news and everyone's buzzing about it and it's all the big deal and I have a few things to say and that's it. The RIAA won its first jury trial.
Oh, no.
Now, that would have been, bad news. Like, what? Everyone always said if there was a jury trial, they'd lose because everyone hates the RIAA. And while that's true, the facts of this case make it a little bit interesting. For one, from what I can read, almost everyone on the jury didn't even own a computer. Like, they didn't know anything about technology at all.
It's the same problem with judges don't know, juries don't know. This is why we need a situation in which there are expert witnesses, intelligent judges, and juries that either know about computers or no juries.
Instead, they had expert witnesses who just said whatever they wanted them to say. And two...
I gotta be the expert witness. Me. Call me. Hey, lawyers, call me.
The instructions the judge gave to the jury very much interpreted the law in a very specific way that may or may not be the end interpretation of this law.
Yeah, I hear they're appealing, which is, I guess, you kind of have to.
Well, of course they're going to appeal.
You kind of have to these days,
But also, there's a bunch of little things that can be learned for all of you budding pirates out there. One, the only reason this lawsuit actually worked was because this person had a name online, a handle, if you will, like many people do, and this person was well associated with that handle. And this person pirated the music of their choice from Kazaa, with the same username.
Oh, real smart.
Good game. Rule number 1, if you're going to pirate something, use BitTorrent and don't have a username on some stupid Kazaa kind of site because those sites are all worthless.
Yeah. It was sort of obvious that this person actually was pirating lots of music intentionally and knowingly and all that. Like, the facts of the case, it's like, wow, the person totally did it. Yeah.
Well, even worse, it looks like one of the defenses was that, I had a computer party and anyone could have downloaded those songs.
That's a weak-ass defense.
Well, that's not that bad of a defense. The problem is they showed records that the same device had been connected continuously to as far as the cable company could see for all that time, and that device was not a router. And there was all this actual evidence that she really didn't have any defense, or he, or whoever it was. I don't even know who the trial was for. I mean, all I have to say is that if anything like that happened to us, we have an insecure wireless access point.
Well, it's not so insecure, but
it's using WEP. It's 100% insecure.
Yeah, to anyone intelligent, but to normal people, it's completely locked down. They don't know what the hell to do.
Yeah, but the problem is, I almost worry that even if I didn't do something, but if someone just used our access point and did something shady online, if the jury is going to be a bunch of people who don't even own computers and don't even understand what the internet is, I don't really have much confidence in me being found innocent of something I'm actually innocent of, let alone getting off of something I might have done.
Yep. So it really just kind of sucks. I mean, basically, imagine if we had to go and sit on a jury in the year 3000 and it was a case of like, some guy made some mischief with his teleporter. So, like, we don't even know how teleporters work. So the facts of the case are completely lost on us. We don't understand. Are we really peers at that point? Is it really? I mean, it's sort of vague and subjective what jury of your peers really means, and people always argue about it. But I think clearly that when you are dealing with subject matter that you, the person who is the defendant or perhaps the plaintiff, clearly understand that if the jury also does not understand it, and if a expert witness testimony is not enough to make them understand it, then they are clearly not your peers. And that is one case where I'll say they're not your peers, and you need to get a different jury.
Well, the best part is it looks like the RIAA, even in all the cases they made against this person, one of them was that She is not some illiterate, dumb computer user, but actually was very tech savvy, and that she knew full well what she was doing, or he.
No.
Well, here's the thing.
I guess on a scale, maybe more tech savvy than the jury, but not as tech savvy as us.
You know what their evidence was? This person had a Bachelor of Science in an unrelated field, and because this person had graduated from college, obviously they are tech savvy. And also, I think this person had known to play online games once or twice in the past.
Wow.
Yeah. If that makes you tech savvy, then we're fucking mavens here.
I'm fucking like a genius. If that person's savvy, I don't know what word you use for me. Triple plus savvy? Maybe salvy, S-A-L-V. Like
what?
You know, salve, like you put salve on your instead of cream.
Scott, you haven't even had any Sudafed lately, so I don't think you know what
you know, savvy, whatever.
Scott, what do you got in the news?
Okay. So you know the Linux BIOS everyone talks about, because right now your computer
not many people talk about that. Not many people know what that is.
Okay, so your computer has this BIOS, right?
It's probably Phoenix BIOS.
It's some sort of, you know, IBM PC BIOS, if it's a PC. Macs, the new Macs have like this open firmware thing is completely different, but most PCs, pretty much every PC you're going to buy is this BIOS. And we're not going to talk about the BIOS. It's a whole episode talking about BIOS.
We should do a show on that because it's kind of interesting. And very briefly, think of this. Your computer has changed a lot in, you know, the last, 10 minutes, but especially the last decade. The BIOS of computers has not changed very much in that time.
The purpose of the BIOS back in the day was you turn
basic input-output system.
Not built-in operating system. So it's basically your computer turns on, and the first thing it does is it goes to the BIOS and says, "Hey BIOS, I got to start doing something here, you know, or else what's it gonna do? It's gotta do something first."
Your computer has to know what. I mean, you think, "Oh, my computer just boots." How does it know how to boot? How does it know to start booting? What does it do first when you put electricity into it? How does electricity turn into a booting? And
so
the BIOS does all that.
The BIOS helps with a lot of that. But back in the DOS days, right, DOS didn't know dick. DOS was dumb as shit. That's why when you installed a game in DOS, you need to tell every single game that you had a Sound Blaster 16 and what IRQ it was.
And the DMA.
And the DMA. So the BIOS was the helper in those days. That's why you didn't need to like tell DOS your video card drivers, because the BIOS would help you out, right? Nowadays, we don't need the BIOS to figure out that shit, because Linux and Windows and Mac, all these, you know, modern operating systems, we don't need to tell them where our sound card is. They're very intelligent. And like right now, if you boot, let's say you have a computer with Windows or Linux on it, right? And a BIOS. Basically, you turn the computer on. The BIOS counts your RAM, and it checks what kind of CPU you have, and it does all this shit. And then your operating system starts to boot as soon as the BIOS is done. And then your operating system ignores everything the BIOS just did and does it all on its own 1,000 times better than the BIOS did. The only reason you need the BIOS is if you want to use a shitty operating system like DOS from the olden days, which I guess it's kind of good that it's there. If you want to play old DOS games and install DOS, that you would have this.
DOS box.
I know, right? But also free DOS, which you would still need the BIOS. Free DOS.
DOS EMU.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying.
Plex
you want to
86?
If you want to get the real experience.
Oh, the real experience? You mean the horrible experience?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But it's the true experience.
Of games like suddenly crashing into a sea of ASCII and then a DOS prompt.
And boot disks. Don't forget boot disks. So
boot disks because I didn't have enough RAM
editing
to run
your
Doom.
auto-exec.bat, right. So
hitting F5 on boot and then manually loading mouse drivers.
Because we don't use DOS anymore, we really don't need the BIOS anymore. We don't need to have... The computer doesn't have to do that much when it turns on. All it has to do is, say, hey, see that kernel over there? Load it, go. And the operating system takes care of the rest. And if you got rid of the BIOS... People have gotten rid of the BIOS. They have these machines running Linux BIOS, which basically turns the computer on, loads Linux. They can boot the machine from, nothing to ready to go in, 3 seconds. It's ludicrous, right? So... take that a step further. I didn't even think of this. This is genius. There's a thing that someone's coming out with called Splash Top. And what they did is even better than getting rid of the BIOS and putting a Linux BIOS, right? Basically, this motherboard with no hard drive whatsoever. No hard drive, no disk drives. Just the motherboard with a CPU and some RAM and a monitor plugged in, right? You turn this thing on. They got flash on the motherboard. Boots they got Linux in that flash. It turns on, you got Firefox, you got Skype, you got Linux, your mouse works, in the BIOS.
I've seen things like that before. There was talk a long time ago, but I don't know how far, this wasn't anything practical, where people made a BIOS where you could check your email.
Right, but that's not news. That's not news because I am Scott. And you know that if I see something like this, I'm like, that's bullshit. You're never going to see that in a product you could buy on Newegg.
So do we see this in a product we can buy on Newegg?
If you want, you can go and buy the Asus P5E3 Deluxe. And it's got this shit. And I am so getting that. Oh, my God.
Damn it. See, this is the problem.
I'm so getting that.
Don't bother waiting for the next good thing to come out and buy your computer. Because you know what? The next good thing is going to come out every 3 months.
Anyone who's thinking about buying a PC, Asus P5E3 Deluxe motherboard. There is no other.
If that
this
had existed,
is the one.
I might have broken my unbroken streak of only ever buying 8-bit motherboards.
Oh, the streak, it's so broken. This is the motherboard, people.
Hopefully Scott
Asus
won't break any other streaks tonight.
Asus P5E3 Deluxe. Buy this motherboard. It is the shit. Plus, you know that Linux is going to work with all the stuff on the motherboard because Linux is on the motherboard. You can't go wrong. It's going to work. It comes with Firefox and Skype, right? So, we always have computer problems.
You know what?
Think about that. If we always have, if we didn't have 2 computers or more than 1 computer, you have a computer problem. Computer doesn't work. You go, shit, what do I do? I can't even look up the answer to my problem. This computer, if everything fails, as long as your CPU and your RAM are still good, boom! You turn this on, you get your Firefox.
And your network interface.
And your network interface.
And your network connection.
Right, as long as the motherboard itself isn't broken. You can turn this baby on, get your Firefox and your Skype, get some help, and fix the thing without having to have 2 computers.
To play the slight devil's advocate, I can do that now with a live CD because the odds of enough being broken to where a live CD won't work, but yet the motherboard is fine, are not that great.
But what if your computer basically had a live CD built in?
That's nice.
Can I
update that Firefox in there?
It's quite hot. The only minus I can see to this is that the motherboard is kind of expensive, but it's so worth it.
How expensive?
I think like $350 or
Shit.
something like that.
I paid $100 for my motherboard.
I know. So
and my motherboard has 10 serial ATAs.
It is an expensive motherboard. So if you're the penny pincher,
I got to say it's not worth it yet. $300 is way too much for a non-server motherboard.
This is just the first motherboard that has
I know.
this. But it has it. It's real. So
I'm excited, but I'm not willing to pay $300.
Well, the other thing is, I probably, if I didn't just upgrade my video card and my RAM, I probably would have gone out and bought this despite the price because I'm crazy like that. But since I'm going to be waiting anyway until, I guess my computer is completely old and busted in like 2 or 3 more years. But in 2 or 3 more years, I'm getting a motherboard that's got this shit. No doubt. And it's pretty cool. And anyone with, the money, this is where it's at.
Things of the day. So I don't think I've used this before. We might have seen something similar to it, and I know a lot of people have made jokes like this before, but this is probably the best done version of this.
I think I've seen something like this, but same people doing something slightly different. I don't remember.
I think it's just part of this trend that college humor is more and more becoming the center of all funny videos on the internet that aren't just a baby ripping paper and falling over or trying to drink from a hose.
It's sort of like the Slashdot. It's like if Dig and YouTube, and then the other end you have Slashdot and College Humor. It's sort of like College Humor only picks the really good ones, or they make them. And it's always everything they have there is either quality, or at least you can see it'd be quality to someone. Whereas on Dig videos, it's like some stuff gets dug up and you're like, what the fuck is this shit?
Like that YouTube poop thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is just one of those, what if people talked in the real world the way they talk on the internet? And it's a pretty accurate representation of the average kind of conversation that takes place in most places.
It's an accurate representation of the stereotypical internet conversation.
Well, you know what? Go to FARC. That's pretty much what's going on.
Yeah, go to Something Awful forum, Penny Arcade forum.
I don't know, I think the highlights are when the captchas come into play.
Yeah.
Just when he's like, read this, and the guy's like,
Yeah, that was good stuff, the CAPTCHA action.
And just the one guy who's like, that's gay. Gay!
Yeah.
People actually type that. You'll see people type that whole thing I just said out.
They sure do.
And it was okay. I didn't really laugh out loud, but I found it funny. I laughed out loud at the end.
It's sort of like it's one of those things where it's not actually funny, but it's sort of it's like it's like you just smile and nod, and you know this thing has to exist. It's like yep.
At the end when the guys are like first, and the other guy's like, fuck. I cracked up. I couldn't stop.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so them model rockets. You like model rockets?
We haven't done a show on model rockets, have we?
I've only made like 5.
I was heavily into model rocketry as a child. And also, the laws in Michigan were much laxer than they were in Connecticut or New York. I made some fucking rockets.
Most of mine in Pennsylvania where the laws are much laxer. So, yeah, model rockets are cool. You know what's even cooler? Model rockets that look like stuff. Like
I had a model rocket that looked like an X-Wing, but it was little, and I broke it.
Yeah, well, this guy made one that is an X-Wing. Big. Like, real big. Like, I guess as big as a real X-Wing.
It's real big.
It's really big.
It's not as big as a real X-Wing.
No, but okay. You mean I guess wow. There's no such thing as a real X-Wing. But so how big how big
there is.
If there's no such thing as a real X-Wing, then how big is one?
You know how big one is? Long ago and far away.
No, but think about this, right? Star Wars universe. Everything is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, right?
For all we know, they're all midgets.
For all we know, everything there is half size of what it is here, or twice size. They're all giants.
You know why we know that's not true?
How?
The same reason why Gulliver's Giant couldn't be. The surface area thing. There are inherent qualities to size, and very large things act differently from very small things.
Huh.
Yeah, that's why ants can lift 100 times their weight. But if an ant was the size of a human, not only could it not lift 100 times its weight, but it would be crushed by its own body in gravity.
Gravity, the great equalizer.
Gravity, because you pull based on you pull based on mass, but you don't pull more if something's heavier.
Yes. Okay. He pulls equally.
No, I shouldn't say that because heaviness has nothing to. You know what?
Gravity is the great equalizer. It doesn't discriminate. Okay.
Right.
Regardless, some dude made a model rocket of an X-Wing, and, well, what do you think would happen if someone actually tried to launch that?
It would explode.
Well, here you go. Video for your eyes. Free viewing on the internet, all over the internet. The guy who did the Y-Wing, I think he did that in the past because you don't get to see. There might be a video elsewhere on the internet of the Y-Wing.
Y-Wing's not gonna fly.
I think the Y-Wing was more successful, actually.
Well, he probably just put 2 really big rockets in it.
I think that's what he did. I'm not sure, but yeah. So check this out if you like Star Wars or rockets or explosions,
right,
or fire.
But Scott's kind of sick, as we might have noted, so we didn't want to do one of our, A shows. We didn't want to talk about something that requires research or anything where we have a lot of loud and violent opinions.
Like BIOSes.
We could have gone on a while, but instead we're going to go real briefly because there's not a lot interesting to say about this topic, and Scott was really excited about it, so I figured...
Well, it's one of those things where it's a really boring topic, at least to most people, but... I kind of know enough about it, and I think it's kind of interesting.
Well, it's also funny how quickly time... I mean, I remember when I was in high school, if you bought a computer, you bought a printer. And every computer had a printer attached to it. Like, every single computer.
Or if you're at school, there was a computer lab with a printer.
Yeah, but, the printer was seen as this absolutely essential thing, and everyone just always had.
Well, because back then, before internets was widespread, the primary use of a computer, besides playing games,
writing papers,
was typing something.
And looking at the online encyclopedia and watching that same.
I'm talking about even before those days. You know, I mean, you had a something with a 486. What could it do? It was basically an infinitely better typewriter, but it was still a type. You know, you're still using it for the goal of getting your thing printed on paper,
or
so you can hand it in to the teacher.
Honestly, my primary goal using a computer back then was to play Scorched Earth and Stunt Sporty Racing.
That was also my goal.
Cracked by Killfit.
But printing was also necessary. In fact, essential. Meanwhile, nowadays, not so much printing going on.
I print a lot at work, but that's just because paperless office is one of the biggest lies of this decade.
I don't know. I barely print at work. There's a lot of PDF mailing going on.
You work for a much cooler company. I
do print sometimes, but it's usually when I want to have... I print out the seating chart of the office and pin it up on my little desk wall thingy. But they mail it to me as a PDF. They don't print it out.
Well, my company never
out.
saw fit to give me a laptop or a PDA or anything, even though that sort of thing would probably save them hundreds of thousands of dollars in wasted time.
Awesome.
So I have to print out work orders and crap.
Oh,
and
to carry around with
and,
you. Oh, because you're moving.
Show them to people.
Yeah, I don't move around. I sit at one desk.
Yeah,
so.
I move around, which is good because when I'm bored, I can just get the hell out of my office.
Yeah.
And I just make up an excuse like, yeah, I'm going to.
Well, I don't even need an excuse. If I want to leave the office and say I'm going to Best Buy, I'm going to Staples, I'm going to, I'm in the city. Sometimes people need to go places.
Yeah,
I'm going to get a haircut. I'm going to whatever.
I think the turning point for me was RIT because I went to RIT and I brought a printer.
I also brought a printer.
An HP DeskJet 820 CSE.
I brought my 810C.
Yeah. And we both had a printer. Each one of us had a printer.
I bought that printer for $150 when I was like 18 in high school.
And didn't use our printers so much. I printed out a color goatse and taped it to Scott's orange juice because he'd never seen it before. And he'd avoided it all that time. I figured that was the only way to get him was to pull the 1-2 punch. And I kept trying
he just reminded me that my orange juices, they still don't make.
Oh, that's a story.
I think it's been said on the podcast.
Yeah, but other than that, I never... Wow, goatse was one of the few things I printed.
That's why I'm getting all sick. It's because it's been enough time. I don't have that orange juice that would cure all my diseaseness.
But the thing... I didn't use the printer anymore because all my professors wanted things turned in electronically except my one really dumb liberal arts professor.
Well, my computer teachers wanted it turned electronically. Some liberal arts teachers wanted stuff printed out, but I didn't have to do that many papers. The dreaded mythical, super long paper. I never had to do that, ever.
The longest paper I ever had to write in my entire life was 12 pages long. I
think the longest one I had to write was 10 pages maybe or something like that. I don't know.
Granted, I had to use APA.
It's really easy, and I double-spaced. Come on.
But yeah, even if I needed to print, it was a college campus. I always went to the computer lab and printed it over there. Then I went over to the surly lab assistant, who was always surly, and said, "Can I have my printout?" And he'd go, and get up and give it to me, and then...
Yep. But yeah, I occasionally printed from my DeskJet, but it would seem to be, most of the time it just sat there. I printed from it sort of in bursts. And I could have lived without it.
DeskJets, if you don't, because they were designed for an era, especially because we had 2 old DeskJets where they were used a lot. If you don't use a DeskJet, it stops working pretty quickly.
Well, let's talk about different kinds of printers, right? Originally there were all kinds of different kinds. There's kinds that use for plotting. They grab pens with robotic arms and drag them around the paper. Those do exist. They're good for AutoCAD stuff.
We had a couple at RIT for the IT stuff that we used. They were really awesome.
They just call them plotters, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's all kinds. But the main kinds, originally there was the dot matrix printer.
Which was, people, they're the ones that go bzz, 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 bzz.
The ones with the paper that has the holes in the side, and then you tear the holes off and you play with the holes and you make a mess.
A lot of times the paper was alternating green and white or green and yellow.
Yeah, the paper would stick together sometimes and cause a big jam. And
the paper came in one continuous sheet.
Yeah, it'd just be one big sheet of paper. You had to buy special paper to go in the printer so that the roller could roll the paper out. And basically,
they were called dot matrix because they were just a matrix of dots.
Yep,
and that was it.
There's a little ribbon of ink, and there was this matrix of dots, and it would move the ribbon of ink back and forth, and the dots would either hit or not hit, and anything you printed out would basically either be, it's like pixel or no pixel. That's why, you've seen all those printouts, they used to have that banner printing program for the Apple II that every school would use too much, and you would make every kind of banner the school needed. They'd print out this big, long banner from the Apple II, and some people had the color dot matrix Apple II printer, which the ribbon had 4 different colors of ink on there, and it would go through 4 times, and it was all fancy.
Those printers are shitty, and people say, they still have their uses.
They don't have any use anymore. Forget it.
All the uses they have exist solely because a lot of companies do things in really archaic ways, but I digress. Those printers are not...
a lot of people have a very old... point of sale system or something that only works with incredibly old equipment.
And they always claim, but what if I need to fill out an existing form with carbon paper on it? To which I say, you shouldn't be using carbon paper.
Yes, that is correct. Okay, so the next kind of printer that anyone cared about was the DeskJet/BubbleJet/ whatever. And this is probably what you're used to. It's got a cartridge, and it moves back and forth.
It just sprays ink on a piece of paper.
That's all it does. It just goes pss, 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 and it just sprays ink on the paper. It's really not interesting. It's got, maybe you've got one that's got color, so it has cyan, yellow, magenta, and black ink. So it can make any color it wants by spraying little dots, and it mixes different dots together to make different colors. You get some cyan and some yellow together and make some, I guess, green, bluish, whatever. I don't know the colors. What do I know?
Yeah, they weren't the best printers.
No.
And the cartridges were expensive.
People still use them because I guess they're good, I guess, for a home user.
The thing is,
easy.
Nowadays, because we don't print enough, I guess there's no good solution for printing in the home. Every solution sucks.
Yeah, because, the DeskJet is a good technology for printing in the home. The problem is if you don't print often, the cartridge can dry up, and the cartridges are overpriced because they have a racket going on. But the printers themselves, the technology is incredibly cheap. It's incredibly reliable. It doesn't print very quickly, but that doesn't matter because, you're printing not so often. Where you're printing like a birthday card or your photos, you don't really need like the
Honestly, the only thing I print at home anymore, and it's always the same things.
MapQuests.
It's hotel reservations, confirmations, MapQuests.
Convention reservation confirmations.
Yeah, and that's it.
Receipts to things I buy online, maybe.
And character sheets for Burning Wheel.
Role-playing games. Yeah. Sometimes I actually print out rules to games, like, board games and
like
things.
Liar's Dice.
I print out an entire game, Liar's Dice. They're like games you can print. Also, paper crafts. Print out paper crafts.
When was the last time you did a paper craft?
When I was at that job I quit. I made that dragon where you turn it.
I also made that, but I printed it out in color on a wax printer.
I did. I printed it out in a laser color printer at work.
And I stuck it in my office, and every day people walk by and then they just go like, woo, 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 and then I took it home because I got sick of that.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so there's a laser printer, and
Where my lasers at?
See, the thing about the laser printer is a laser printer is actually kind of expensive. It's like, what, a few $1,000s for a color laser printer that's, like, high quality? I guess there's some that are cheaper now.
See, black and white laser printers are dirt cheap.
Yeah, you can get one for, like, $100.
And I recommend that, but we'll get to it.
Yep. But, the way a laser printer works, I'm actually pretty proud that I know this, and I think it's really cool. I'm not going to go into stupid detail because someone who knows better than me in more details is going to rat me out. But the basic fundamental way a laser printer works is this. You have this plastic area, right?
And there's a guy standing there. He says, I'm charging my laser.
Yep. He says, I'm charging my laser. And you shoot this laser. There's a reason they call it laser printer. This laser shoots this piece of plastic. And wherever, it's a special plastic and a special laser. And wherever the laser shoots the plastic gets charged. And then the toner opens up. And the toner gets stuck to the plastic wherever the plastic got shot with the laser. So you shoot the plastic with the laser, the toner touches the plastic where it got shot, but it doesn't touch the plastic where it didn't get shot, and the result is what you want to print is now in toner on the plastic. Then it heats up, and it touches the paper to the plastic or rolls the paper across the plastic. Usually it's a roll, and it does it, one part at a time. It doesn't do the whole sheet at once. And it rolls the paper across the plastic while it's hot, and the toner melts and sticks to the paper instead of the plastic, and you got your print.
Now, two interesting things. One, the toner it actually looks and acts like liquid, but it's actually a very, very, very fine solid.
It's pretty scary. If you ever find like a big like color laser printer, like a big copier fax scanner at an office, they'll have separate toners cartridges for each individual, for black, cyan, magenta, yellow, and they're usually clear. And you could take them out and you move them back and forth, and it looks like yellow liquid or ink is inside of it. But when you look closer, it's just a million really, really, really tiny balls. So tiny that it looks like liquid if you don't get your eye really close to it.
Two, if you ever spill toner somewhere, somehow, which it happens every now and then, you should avoid it. It's not like it'll kill you, but it is kind of toxic.
It sucks, basically. It's not like mercury or uranium,
luckily,
but it sucks.
It's actually easy to clean up, but here's a little hint for all of you out there.
Don't get it hot.
Yeah, if you ever have to wash toner off, set the washing machine on cold. Otherwise, you're going to tone everything black.
Yep. Okay, so that's how laser printer works. And if it's a color laser printer, it just does the same thing with all the other colors instead of just black. And a laser printer, it's sort of this weird thing where for a home user, well, for a business, obviously, because in terms of amount of money per page you print, a laser printer is unbeatable. It's absolutely unbeatable. It costs you like a few cents to print out one page with a laser printer. But for a home user, it's sort of rough because the cost of the printer Plus, the cost of a single toner cartridge is pretty high compared to, say, a DeskJet, which you can buy a DeskJet for like $20 and a cartridge for like $30.
So buy another DeskJet.
Right. But the laser printer, over time, will save you money compared to the DeskJet.
Now, a lot of people say, but I want to print in my color. And the answer is, think about what you print and how often you really print. The truth is, most of the printing that the average person will do is going to be in black and white, with obvious exceptions for, artists or people with home businesses who need to print in color.
And the thing is, there are a lot of people who do like to print their photos from the digital camera.
Now, in that case, your best bet is to have a photo printer.
That's what I was just going to say. They make photo printers that print out photos on photo paper. You can get one. They're pretty cheap.
They're really nice, really cheap. They'll do, they're not super cheap, but they'll do what you want a lot better than any other color printer.
If you are doing that a lot, if you find yourself printing photos from your digital camera a lot and you want quality, get a photo printer. Or just do that thing where you go and there's like those Kodak kiosks and you put your memory card in them and they print photos out. Do that thing, because that thing's not so bad. And they're everywhere. They're in grocery stores and Targets and CVS's and whatever.
But I'll be honest, I feel like there's almost no use for the average person to have a DeskJet anymore. And I feel like
it's mostly because the cartridges are a ripoff. Now, some people, they say, but I refill the cartridge. I do this, I do that. Well, here's the thing. For refilling a cartridge, I guess there are, for the most part, it works. There are places you can go to have them do it for you to avoid the trouble, and such. But they try to screw you. They have like DRM and stuff. It's sort of like those coffee pods where you can't make your own, and it's basically, sure, you can save a lot of money if you do that, if you go through the hassle, but it's not worth it, and it just sucks.
Well, I think it's more that laser printers are generally just better in every way, and it's kind of the high initial investment, long-term returns, as opposed to small initial investment, continual investment.
Mm-hmm. I guess the only other thing you got to think about with your printer is how it connects to your computer.
The answer nowadays is just USB.
I know. Back in the day, you used to have those big parallel cables. Now it's USB. But some people, they like to share the printer. They want if you got a lot of computers in your house, why should you buy a printer for each computer? You can buy one printer for the whole house.
Now, honestly, for most people, they use Windows. It's super easy. You just right-click on the printer and say share, and then everyone else can print to it.
Yep. There's two ways to do it. One way is what Rim just said. You plug the printer into just one computer, and that computer, you tell that computer to share the printer, and every other computer, you say, find the printer that's shared and use it. And it works. It's pretty simple.
Now, another thing you can do, and this is actually a good idea, especially for a family or if you don't want to bother, you can buy a little box with a USB hole.
Oh.
That you plug the printer into that. And some of these boxes are wireless. Like, you just plug them into power then, and that's it. And some of them have an Ethernet hole. But they basically serve your printer out as though it were a network printer.
Yep.
And then you just print to it.
It's basically a little tiny print server in a little tiny box, and it's pretty cheap. And you connect your printer to it, and now your printer is shared, and ta-da! You don't have to plug your printer into a computer to have it shared amongst all the computers in the network. The third thing you can do is get a printer that actually has a network card in it.
Those tend to be expensive.
Yeah, they make printers now that have Wi-Fi in them.
Now that, I think, is a good idea.
It is. It's still kind of expensive compared to any other sort of printer, but it could be really useful for you. I mean, you're going to spend the money on the print server, or if you're going to spend the money on having a printer with a print server in it, why not get the printer with the print server in it?
If you have money to burn, get the print server, but if you just need a printer and you need other people to print to it, just use the Windows sharing. It works fine. Don't even bother with security.
Yeah. It really comes down to how much you're willing to spend, how smart you are, and how good you are at setting this sort of thing up, what kind of network you have going on, and the physical surroundings. Where are you going to put the printer? What's near that? Is it close enough to a network connection, or is it within Wi-Fi range?
Don't put your printer on carpet
like we do.
Don't put it on the floor
like we do.
If you smoke, don't keep it anywhere near where you smoke.
Yeah.
Don't put your computers anywhere near where you smoke either.
No, your computers and your printer will fill it with dust, and it kind of ruins it over time. No matter what kind of printer it is, it doesn't matter. You don't want to put your printer anywhere near any sort of dusty crap. You want to keep it clean. Printers use a lot of power. I mean,
normal printers don't. Like DeskJets don't.
No, not so much. But they use some.
Laser printers, do not let them share circuits with any delicate electronics. And like, if in our house, if I start printing, the printer's downstairs. If I print to that printer, the lights in my room dim a little bit.
Yeah, I used to have in my room, I think there's like 2 or 3 circuits in my room, right? I had it arranged in a certain way where the printer was on the same thing as like the air conditioner and some lamps. And when I would print, like the UPS would be like, dee, 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 watch out, he's printing, oh no. But now I rearranged the room and I moved the printer downstairs, so that doesn't happen anymore.
I had to convince some people at my company once because these people wanted like 3 gigantic laser printers.
Oh,
like
they ought to be
color.
on 3 separate circuits.
These things are like as big as like freezers.
3 separate circuits.
And they want to put them in this room, and I'm like, well, there's no network drops. And then I look and I see one outlet in the room. I look at that outlet. And I'm like, so I find the schematics, and that outlet is shared with several other outlets in other rooms nearby.
Oh.
And they were like, so what, are we good to go? And I was like,
hells no.
you can't plug even one of these in. You have to hire an electrician. They're like, why? And I was like,
you should have said,
me.
go get a power strip for $5 from Staples and try it.
I didn't want him to burn the building down.
It wouldn't have burned the building down. It would just flick the circuit breaker, most likely.
The thing is, I read the book that came with these printers. Actually, I actually read it. And apparently no one else did.
What did it say? Dedicated lines?
Said, dedicated 20-amp circuit per.
Ah, that's nice. You know what, though? That's probably a good printer.
You know what? It was fucking awesome printer. Oh, they also wanted to put all these printers in an unventilated room.
Oh!
Which is bad for a lot of reasons.
Remember what I said about needing to heat up the toner?
Yeah,
Not only is a printer basically a computer that's doing all, modern ones anyway. They're computing all the time and doing stuff. They also have motors in them. And not only do they have motors, but they also are purposefully making heat in order to melt toner. So there's a lot of heat coming out of a printer.
On top of that, it's not enough to hurt. Like, a printer gives off a small amount of toxic gas a laser printer when you print. That's just how it works. But it's not going to hurt you. It's a really small amount. It dissipates in the air.
It usually smells good.
Like, computers give off toxic gas. Technically, they make ozone a lot of the time. Just in really small quantities. It's not going to hurt you.
Not like those ionic breeze air filters that will hurt you because they make too much ozone.
Well, the old ones, apparently they fixed that.
Well, they were hurting old people, and those things suck. You're better off just getting a fan.
Yeah.
Or the other kind of air filter? The
HEPA,
whatever.
I had one of those.
The
when I was
kind
a
that's
kid.
actually a filter and not some ionic shit.
Yeah, but if you want to put a bunch of printers in a airtight room with no ventilation, you're gonna fill that room with hot toxic gas in a hurry.
It sure will.
All right, I think we're done. We said we wanted to go short. We didn't so much, but...
well, that's fine. I'm kind of...
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.